So I've been working for the man for years and years. You then get laid off. You then have to make a decision. What am I going to do? Am I going to put on my big boy pants? Or am I going to go find a job? It all starts with a loaf of bread and a coffee and an idea.
What?
Let's meet my next guest. You ready to hear his story? Let's do it. Theo, yes, I'm
John.
excited to talk to you, mate. How you doing?
Good, brother. How are you?
Yeah, good, man. Good. I'm a huge fan of your business, and I'm up there most weeks to get two things: a loaf and coffee, because they're the two things that you do in all of Scotland, as far as I'm concerned, is to be the best.
Thanks, man. For
Very
me,
humble.
The bread it was a bread journey. It was started off mucking around with bread, and I was like, how can you expand on this? And then coffee was obviously the next natural progression, because it was hard to get a good cup of coffee in Straven.
Yeah.
So I thought if I could tick those two boxes, then everything else was a winner.
So I did actually start with that, with you making the bread and the coffee. They were the two things that were like, right, and then I can build from here. Is that
was
how your story
the whole
started?
business. Yeah, so that's where the whole business sort of stemmed from, those two things. Because I'd been in the background, I'd been making loaves of bread and perfecting the sourdough and just giving them out to heaps of my mates.
Yeah.
And there was criticism, there was shapes, there was sort of, it wasn't quite straightforward. And I literally went from making 1 to 2 loaves of bread each time to making 12 loaves of bread.
Wow.
And making like 24 loaves of bread. And to put it into perspective, on Saturday there, I ended up making 60 loaves of bread.
What?
Yeah.
Wow. So to go back to the beginning, what prompted you to open up your business and start with Roasted Straven? Like what was the beginning?
What prompted it? That's a good question, because for years, when I first came here 18 years ago, in 2003, I was always scanning the area, looking for empty shops and stuff like that. But it never quite worked out. Viewed heaps of businesses, heaps of empty units, but it never worked out. And then what sort of put me in the sort of forced the situation, I was working for UWS in Hamilton, and they terminated my contract in October of 2017. And I was like, and it was literally a month before Christmas. And I was like, well, I got two choices here. I can either try and find another job as a chef. Now, for UWS, I was managing the refectory, the cafeteria and stuff like that. Or I can put my big boy pants on and go for it. And it happened, I looked at a couple of different units. But the one that I looked at across the road, I wasn't quite ready. But the chap that owned the building, who was my neighbor, incidentally, had somebody that was interested straight away. And I said, look, if he's ready to go for it. Then the one from across the road became available. I met with the landlady, had a look around, and she straight away said, look, I like your vision. I like what you want to do. And from there was no hesitations. It was just a case of get everything in place, sign on the dotted line, and go from there.
Yeah. So you had a vision on how you wanted the shop to look like? Because I know it, for me, obviously being from Melbourne, it feels like that. You know, it feels very Melbourne and coffee, that type of vibe.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I mean, being a Sydney boy as well, like, I mean, you'd go to places in Rose Bay, you'd go to places in Bronte and stuff like that. And it was all the ones up quiet little streets or backward corners or underneath car parking lots that had the coolest vibes.
Yeah. Because
they were rough and ready. The milk crates were out, and everybody was queuing to go to that place.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like sort of not necessarily a rough and ready, but a very sort of natural, very wood. There was a place in Glasgow, in the south side, that I sort of took inspiration for the plywood.
Okay.
Because I thought that was an amazing sort of bit of wood or a feature to use. But what actually started from one feature wall ended up being 90% of the shop.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is a cool looking shop, and like, yeah, I do really enjoy, and I'm looking forward to when COVID's over that I can actually get back in the shop because I know at the moment, COVID has affected you and affected
Oh,
so many others.
absolutely. It's a weird one because COVID's turned around and sort of done two things for the
Hmm.
business. Um, it's made you sort of look back and think, okay, so where did I go wrong before? Because I got to a point where the business was so successful and you were making money, but what was happening? The VAT man kept on catching me out, and I was like, I couldn't work it out why I was constantly chasing my tail. And then COVID hit, and I was like, sort of hit a panic station. I thought, dude, what's going to happen next?
Mm.
But on the 22nd of March, I think it was, or the 21st of March, when we were all told to shut our businesses last year, it was the most heart-wrenching thing. I turned around, put the key in the door on the Saturday, and I was like, what's going to happen next?
Yeah.
I made it to the Wednesday of the following week, and I thought, this is boring. I can't sit down.
Yeah.
So I thought, you know what? Because all the staff were protected, they were all put on furlough, but
Okay.
I couldn't obtain any support from the government
Hmm.
because of the time frame when I started my business.
Right.
Being such a juvenile business, I wasn't able to access any self-employment funds. So I thought, you know what, I'll do deliveries. I let the phone ring on the Saturday, and I just went berserk. Um, People were one of my mates sent a picture of 117 attempts to get through.
Wow. Wow.
So it was like calling the doctors.
Yeah.
Um, I ended up doing that day. It was a bit of hit or miss. Didn't go as smooth as I envisioned it. Then the following week, I thought I could do a box, and that's what saved the day.
Right.
Because I came up with this box idea. I thought, chuck a dozen eggs in there, chuck a loaf of bread in there, 4 sausage rolls that were uncooked, so the person could cook them whenever they wanted. 2 chocolate brownies and 2 cinnamon buns. I gave it a value, and aimed to do 24. And started off with 1 delivery, then increased it to 2 deliveries on a Wednesday and a Friday, for basically the rest of March and the whole of April.
Hmm.
And then come May, I thought, you know what, it's time to open up.
Yeah.
But don't get me wrong, we were still in the middle of lockdown, and I was very, very cautious of what you were and what you weren't allowed to do.
Yeah.
So the long story short, I just ended up doing Wednesday to Saturday, 9 till 2, and that was the working week.
Right.
People loved it because they were getting out of the mundane of being locked in the house. They had
Yeah.
that little glimmer of hope. The only difference between last year and this particular lockdown, people were allowed to sort of come into the shop, whereas at the beginning of this year, the second week in January, we had to operate a hatch,
Hmm.
which is not ideal. January's been very cold,
Yeah.
and you're relying on people to queue outside as opposed to being able to queue inside.
Yeah.
But thank God I've got the support of the community, and
Yeah.
obviously you come from further afield than
Yeah.
Straven, but I've got the support of everybody, and it's been great.
Yeah,
The
that's nice,
people have
isn't it?
been
It's nice when
fantastic.
like a community comes together to
Yeah,
support. I mean, but in saying that, like your products that you do sell are high quality ingredients. You can
yeah,
tell that it's good quality stuff. So I'm not surprised, to be honest, that people want to line up and get your stuff even in the cold.
yeah. It's funny because I don't turn around and harp on that the flour's organic. I don't harp on that the eggs are free range, but I do pick my supplies very
Mm,
carefully and the ingredients very carefully. And for me, it's about, would I eat it? Would I pay money for that? And if I'm not prepared to pay money for it, then I can't expect you or
yeah,
anybody else to pay for that. So hence why the coffee has to be the best of the best. The bread has to be the best of the best. And if it's not good, we bin it.
yeah,
And I have had a couple of disasters along the way. In the beginning, bread overproved and having to throw out 16 kilos of bread.
right.
But it is what it is. You sort of learn from the good days and learn from the bad.
Yeah, yeah. So you're saying, but just to go back a little bit, you were saying about the VAT man was chasing you, like that whole VAT
Yeah,
thing. So
the
what
VAT man.
happens? Yeah, what happens with that?
Where I went wrong, I had this vision, and the tables and chairs were never meant to be the main focus of the business. The business was meant to be potentially takeaway. But in the end, it ended up being 50-50, 50% sitting in and 50% takeaway. And because I didn't feel right in charging people VAT on everything that they had in the shop, I thought we could absorb it. But the lesson learned there was it didn't quite work out that way, because what would happen is by every quarter, when the VAT bill came in, you had about a quarter of what they were asking. And when you got like a $7,000 bill to pay up, the realization came quite quickly that something wasn't right. And it wasn't that I was spending the money, and it wasn't that you weren't making the money, because both of those things were, the spending was controlled and the making of the money was there. What was missing was the VAT on the people that were sitting in. And because it was 50% of the business, that's where you got caught out.
Right.
So COVID, for all its negativity and all its having to think on your feet and change your business model, and this is the fourth time I've had to change my business model since we started. It's taught me, see, when you're able to put the tables and chairs back, you need to charge.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to turn around and be in the same position again.
Yeah, absolutely. And so do you think that, what's the vision for Roasted? Like, do you want to stay the size that you are? Like, or do you want to, would you like to have more places, and, or are you happy with what you've got?
No, I look at my mate, who was one of the chaps that I spoke to, and I drew inspiration from his place in the South Side. He's now opened up, he's got 3 in Glasgow, he's opening 1 in Inverness, and he's opening up another one. And I look at him and I think, how does he do it? How does he do it? Now, I don't want to do too many, because I do feel once you start opening additional places, you need to be on top of it. You need to be the project manager effectively. And if you're not prepared to let go of your baby, and Roasted is my baby. But I've gotten to a stage now where I know that I can step away from Roasted, and let the guys crack on, and do that. And I learned that the hard way when I ended up in hospital end of November for 10 days. And the guys all stepped up to the plate. They weren't aware that they were stepping up to the plate. They just had to do it.
Yeah.
But the vision is to turn around and potentially get at least another unit up and running, whether it's exactly the same as Roasted in another town, or whether it's another version. I keep on falling back to my Greek heritage and sort of wanting to do gyros, or the souvlakis, because it's really nice. But then the other side of me wants to do burgers, because I grew up in a fish and chip shop. So for me, it's like I've just have this vision of ordering a burger with a lot here, with an egg and beetroot, and biting into it, and the juices dribbling. You know where I'm going, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Like with the lettuce, the tomato, the beetroot, bacon, egg, cheese, pineapple,
all the good stuff,
and the lockjaw when you go to bite it. This big Mac nonsense.
Yeah, so you would like to do that. You would maybe like to open another place.
I'm stuck, but I've got this moral dilemma on the flip side of that I don't really want to deep fry chips.
Yeah.
And it's a hard one, because a burger needs chips, a gyros needs chips. And it's like, in my head, I'm trying to work out how can I do a roasted chip that isn't deep fried, that's semi-healthy for you, but still packs all that sort of flavor.
Yeah. So going back on everything that you've created, so you obviously have perfected the loaf as far as I'm concerned, and your coffee.
Yeah, I'm extremely happy with the loaf and the coffee. That's the 4th coffee roaster that I've had in Roasted, and those boys have been with me since not October last year, October the year before, so 2019. And I kind of like their coffee. I like their ethos. There's no wastage, there's no junk. My coffee comes in a cardboard box. The bags are compostable, and I just decant it into plastic buckets that I've recycled from products that I've got in. So there's no wastage, because when I first started, that's what killed me. It was like my milk was coming in 2-liter plastic bottles, my coffee was coming in kilo bags, And when you're doing like 15 kilos of coffee a week, that's a lot of wastage when you were going through 22-liter bottles of milk a week. It was or a day, sorry. Again, it was very wasteful. So with the milk, which is organic and comes from Ayrshire, from about, I think, the third month, not even as long as that, I turned around and said to the guy, I said, look, I'm sick of these 2-liter plastic bottles. They're just a hindrance. So I used to get my milk in dairy, what they used to give to the ice cream parlor. So it was a big 10-liter jerry can, or a milk urn, effectively. And I used to decant it into bigger jug or smaller jugs and use it from that. Eventually, the milk now comes in a 5-liter pail that are returnable. So I collect the empty pails. They go back to the milkman. They get washed at that end, refilled, and sent back to me.
Yeah.
And the same with the coffee. It's about sort of reducing your carbon footprint and waste at the same time.
Yeah. So in regards to the inspiration that you have, because my wife also loves your chocolate orange brownie, and every time I go there, it seems to be sold out the majority of the time. Where did you get your inspiration for all your cakes and your biscuits and everything you've got in your shop?
That was a weird one. I had envisioned as cakes for roasted are completely different to what and what I've ended up making and what ends up selling. I used to only ever do just a plain chocolate brownie. And then it must have been about 8 months ago, I decided to do a flavor brownie. I don't know what I was thinking. And then all of a sudden it exploded from there.
Right.
To the point now where you're like literally, and I get like 36 portions from a tray of brownies. So on average, and even trading 2 days a week now, in January, I've been doing the 2 days. I'm going through 4 to 5 trays of brownie in a 2-day period.
Wow.
Which is mental, absolutely mental. But then I draw inspiration from sort of not so much other coffee shops. I'm a big fan of Instagram as a sort of a visual aid, because that's why I love Instagram so much, because it is, you plant a picture, you put the Oreo. Have you tried the Oreo Biscoff Rocky Road?
Biscoff. Yeah. Tried that.
So again, I saw some chick on Instagram do that, and I thought, she did a little tray like that, and I thought, how can I jack that up and do it in an industrial sort of?
Yeah.
So I tweaked the recipe, and I've now got it perfected, and it's so easy to do, and it's so tasty. It's absolutely addictive.
I'm getting hungry, mate. We could have got to stop talking about this.
I look at sort of things, and I think, how can I turn them into commercial quantities?
Yeah.
And do that. The same with the white chocolate tiffin. That started off as we'll do this once. Oh, where did that tiffin go? So people start to like it. I like to keep people guessing as well, put things on and then take them away because I get cranky with them. But the one thing that I can't get rid of is the cinnamon buns. People absolutely love the cinnamon buns.
Yeah.
But the best time to get them is like 9:15 in the morning when they come straight out of the oven, because they're so light and fluffy. And it's like a donut, effectively, because when you put it in your mouth, it just dissolves.
Oh, Giameos.
I'll call you next time I'm taking them out.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be down there. You mentioned Instagram. Is that your platform of choice for pushing everything out and communicating with the community?
Yeah. It is. I've linked. So whatever posts I do, I just do them from Instagram, because through Instagram I can tag Facebook and Twitter. So instead of doing 14 different posts and stuff like that, I just do the one post, and you tag Instagram and Twitter in there, because there's people, not a lot of people on Twitter, but there's people on Twitter. But Instagram, I'm sitting at just under 2,900 followers at the moment, and that's without a sponsored post at all.
Yeah.
And I'm quite sort of cheeky with my posts, very sitting on the edge sometimes.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think I like to be humorous and share the love, because if you put up a good picture, and it doesn't matter whether you're vegan, vegetarian, a carnivore, you're planting the seed.
Yeah.
So today we had Zorba the Greek, and I've just decided that giving the sandwiches names, people absolutely love it.
Yeah.
So last week we had the Karate Kid, which was gochujang, which is Korean red chili paste, soya mayonnaise, Italian sausage, smoked mozzarella, toasted, and everybody goes, "Why Karate Kid?" Well, Danielson was Italian, Mr. Miyagi was Chinese. Put the two together, there you've got Karate Kid, mate. So it is about getting flavors that are completely random,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
putting them together, and then people just go absolutely berserk for it.
Awesome. The Reuben,
Today we had
I can't get past the Reuben, mate. The Reuben at your place is delicious.
I've got a customer, he absolutely loves the Reuben. He goes, "It's not a sandwich, it's a manwich."
Tell me what's on the Reuben
dude.
again. What's on the Reuben?
So the Reuben is Russian dressing, pickled red cabbage. Instead, traditionally it's meant to be like a sort of sauerkraut, but we do the pickled red cabbage because it's a Scottish sort of thing. And I like to be sort of different. Gruyere cheese and the pastrami, the pepper sliced really thin peppered pastrami.
Delicious.
We don't go crazy with the pastrami. Like when you look at the American Reubens, they're like loaded with meat. But still, it's a proper sandwich. And you'll have people that actually complain that the sandwiches are too big. And they're lightweights. If you're cutting that sandwich in half and sharing it, go away. It's like it's a sandwich for a person. It's designed for one person. Be a man.
Absolutely.
Eat the bloody thing.
Yeah. So to go back, you were saying before that you've changed your business model 3 or 4 times.
4 times, yeah.
Yeah. So if you could go back in time and just as you're starting and you're opening and whatever else. Now I understand that you learn from your mistakes as you go through your business.
Oh, absolutely.
And that helps things. But what would you go back and really be like, no, this is absolutely paramount that I need to do in my business to move forward?
See, to be honest with you, I don't think I would have changed anything, because from day one, the response from the community, and keep in mind that the one thing that I didn't advertise. I didn't tell people what was opening up. All I did was 3 weeks before we opened up, my sign had gone up. So that was sitting at the front of the shop, and it just caught everybody's eye. They were like, what's that? And during the build, we were telling people we were making a brothel. They weren't buying it. It's a shame, but we were just messing with people's imagination, because everybody was curious and wanted to know.
Yeah.
Even with because they saw all the plywood and the OSB on the floor. I said, "What are you putting on the floor?" That is the floor. "What are you doing with the walls?" That is the walls. And people couldn't get it, because here in Scotland everything has to be plastered and everything has to be painted, and it was like, for me, it was about creating something that was rustic. I wanted the extraction so you could see it, the cable trays hanging from the ceiling, the lights, no lampshades or anything like that, just literally a pendant with a what do you call it, a LED light.
Yeah.
I wouldn't change anything, because to be honest with you, that was the sort of the vision. But obviously, fast forward now, it'll be 3 years in July since I opened up. You learned. So I wouldn't change anything, but I'm glad that I've learned.
Yeah. And
I'm now able to sort of fix where I was going wrong, because it was quite scary to be chasing your tail from September 2 years ago. And it was really stressing me. It was honestly stressing me. And you thought, I thought I would have been more stressed with COVID and having to shut the shop down. But see, in September, when you got like 12 members of staff, you've got all these wages, you've got all these bills, but it was the VAT that kept on catching you out.
Yeah.
And I was like, what am I doing wrong? Where have I gone wrong? And I'm glad that sort of 3 months later, when the whole world was told, right, we need to stop, it gave me an opportunity to reflect.
Yeah.
And look at, okay, hang on a second, that wasn't such a bad thing, but now I know what I need to do going forward.
Yeah. What's a proud moment that you have with Roasted that was just like something that really stands out that hits you in your face?
There's been a few, but it was one of my proudest moments when you came and shot the first video, because you did such an amazing job at capturing Roasted in that 1 minute. You literally caught the whole thing. And when we posted it,
thank you.
No, I'm being serious. For me, that was proud, because it shows all your hard work, and it shows what you've created. So for me, it was one of those, that was my my proud moment, because
Yeah,
you
to look
got
at
to
look
see.
at it from the other side of the fence and
Yeah,
actually see it
absolutely,
visually and be
because
like, wow, I created this.
so I know, like, I mean, I'm a very loud person, shall we say. I'm Australian, for crying out loud. We tell it as it is. We don't mince our words. We don't sort
Absolutely,
of
mate.
sprinkle hundreds and thousands and icing sugar and garnishes and stuff. We just tell it as it is. So for me, I'm very realistic with the customers. If they need to be told, I tell them. If they're being silly, they're fired. They're barred for life and stuff. But looking back at that, that was my proud moment, because you got to see everything.
Yeah.
In that sort of encapsulated it.
Yeah.
No, other proud awesome moments is the next one is the one of the other photographers in town took a lineup. We had this vision. We wanted to do like a classic old sort of, you know, how in the 1600s and not but the 1960s and stuff like that. You'd have all the French Brigade, and they'd all be in their chef's whites and the black and white photos standing at the front of the businesses. So we wanted to replicate one of those photos. So we got everybody out. It was quite a motley crew, because you could see the divide, you could see the groups. But again, a picture says 1,000 words. So it was it's a pretty cool picture, that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Theo, I really appreciate you coming on and talking to us today about your business. It's a pleasure. And no, it's been really nice chatting to you. And yeah, if you're in Straven, or even if you're not in Straven, you should definitely go down and visit Roasted, that's for sure, and get yourself a loaf, if anything. Guys, thanks very much for watching, and make sure you like and share, and we'll put a link to Roasted as well with their handle on Instagram, and make sure you get down there and grab yourself a loaf and a coffee, absolutely, as well. Definitely. Thanks very much, Theo, and we look forward to talking to you soon.
See you later, brother. Take care.
Thanks, boss.